Colorado Territory, 1872. The Arapahoe River snaked through the valley, cutting through the rocky terrain like a silver ribbon against the dusty landscape. Delilah Andrews stood at the edge of her small homestead, watching the evening sun cast long shadows across the golden plains. At 22, she had already weathered more hardship than most women twice her age. Her chestnut hair, pulled back in a practical braid that reached the middle of her back, caught the fading light as she surveyed the modest cabin and small garden that represented everything she had left in the world. 3 years had passed since the influenza took her parents, leaving her alone with nothing but determination and the medical knowledge her mother, a skilled nurse before moving west, had imparted. Delilah wore a simple blue cotton dress, patched at the elbows but clean and well-maintained, much like the stubborn hope she clung to despite everything. Another day gone, she murmured to herself, adjusting her worn leather boots. Another day survived. That was her measure of success now, survival. Love was a luxury she couldn't afford, not out here where the land demanded everything and gave little in return. She had seen what happened to women who pinned their hopes on men in this untamed country. They withered when those men failed to return from cattle drives, mining expeditions, or encounters with hostiles. Better to rely on herself, her small garden, the goats she kept, and the healing skills that occasionally brought in money from passing travelers. Her mother's final words echoed in her mind almost daily. Guard your heart, Delilah. Out here, it's the most vulnerable part of you. She had taken those words to heart, building walls higher than the distant mountains. The frontier was no place for romance, only survival. What she wanted, needed, was security, not the foolish dreams of love that had brought her parents west in the first place. Their love story had ended in twin graves behind the cabin. As twilight settled over the valley, Delilah was about to return inside when a movement caught her eye. Someone was stumbling along the distant trail that wound past her property. The figure weaved unsteadily, then collapsed in a heap. Delilah hesitated. Strangers meant danger as often as opportunity. But the healer in her couldn't ignore someone in distress. Grabbing her father's old rifle and slinging her medicine satchel over her shoulder, she approached cautiously, ready to retreat at the first sign of trouble. The crumpled form belonged to a young man, perhaps 25, wearing the dust-covered clothes of a cowhand. Blood had soaked through his shirt just below his right shoulder, and his face was pale beneath a light stubble and the grime of hard travel. "Can you hear me?" she called, keeping her distance, rifle ready. The man's eyes fluttered open, startlingly blue against his sun-browned face. "Water," he croaked, before consciousness slipped away again. Delilah prodded him with the rifle barrel, checking for weapons. He carried a Colt revolver, which she promptly removed and tucked into her own belt. A folded paper fell from his pocket, a letter addressed to Adam Mitchell at the Double Creek Ranch, some 20 miles north. "Mr. Mitchell," she said firmly, "I'm going to help you, but I can't carry you alone." When he didn't respond, Delilah made a quick decision. She hurried back to the cabin, hitched her mule to the small cart her father had built, and returned. With considerable effort, she managed to roll the unconscious cowboy onto the cart. His features, even contorted in pain, held a certain handsomeness that she promptly pushed from her mind. Handsome or not, he was trouble she didn't need, but couldn't in good conscience turn away. The bullet had gone clean through his shoulder, which was both blessing and curse. Less risk of lead poisoning, but more blood loss. By lantern light, Delilah cut away his shirt, cleaned the wound with whiskey that made him jerk even in unconsciousness, and stitched both entry and exit wounds with practiced hands. His body was lean and muscular from ranch work, marked with scars that told of a hard life. "Who shot you, Mr. Mitchell?" she wondered aloud as she worked. "And why did you end up at my doorstep of all places?" Throughout the night, fever took him. Delilah bathed his forehead with cool cloths, spooned water between his parched lips, and changed the bandages when blood soaked through. Dawn found her exhausted, slumped in a chair beside the bed where the stranger fought for his life. "Don't die," she whispered, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I've dug enough graves on this property." 3 days passed in a blur of changing bandages, brewing willow bark tea for the fever, and catching moments of sleep when she could. On the 4th morning, Delilah was grinding herbs when she heard a rustle from the bed. "Am I dead?" The voice was raspy but stronger than she expected. Not for lack of trying, she replied, setting aside her mortar and pestle. You've been burning with fever for days. Adam Mitchell tried to sit up, wincing at the pain that immediately forced him back down. Where am I? And who might you be, ma'am? You're at my homestead, 5 miles south of Cedar Junction. I'm Delilah Andrews. She approached with a cup of water. And you're Adam Mitchell from Double Creek Ranch, according to the letter I found on you. Wariness flickered across his face at the mention of the letter, quickly replaced by a charming smile that Delilah immediately distrusted. I'm in your debt, Miss Andrews, he said, accepting the water. Not many would take in a bleeding stranger. Don't mistake necessity for kindness, Mr. Mitchell. I couldn't leave you to die, but once you're well enough, you'll be on your way. She kept her tone businesslike. Now, who shot you and why? Adam hesitated, his blue eyes studying her face as if gauging how much to reveal. Cattle rustlers. I caught them with Double Creek stock, and they took exception to my interference. It wasn't the whole truth. Delilah had nursed enough men to recognize evasion, but she didn't press. His secrets were his own, as long as they didn't bring danger to her door. You're lucky. The bullet missed anything vital. She changed the bandage with efficient movements, ignoring his grimace of pain. A few more days of rest, and you can return to your ranch. They think I'm dead, he said quietly. The rustlers. Might be safer if it stays that way for a while. Delilah stepped back, crossing her arms. I didn't agree to harbor a fugitive, Mr. Mitchell. Not a fugitive, he corrected quickly. Just a man who needs time to heal before facing what's waiting for him. His eyes, clear despite the lingering fever, held hers. I can pay, and I can work, once this shoulder mends. She should send him away. Her instincts screamed that this man would complicate her carefully ordered existence. But winter approached, and an extra pair of hands, even temporarily, could mean the difference between comfort and hardship in the coming months. 2 weeks, she finally said. You can stay 2 weeks to regain your strength. Then you're gone, regardless of who's looking for you or why. Adam's grateful smile stirred something Delilah immediately tamped down. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. I'm a man of my word, Miss Andrews. 2 weeks, and I'll trouble you no further. She nodded curtly and turned away, not trusting herself to maintain her stern expression under the warmth of those blue eyes. This wounded cowboy was merely a temporary inconvenience, certainly not a threat to the walls she'd built around her heart. The days that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. As Adam's strength returned, he insisted on helping despite Delilah's protests. She would find him feeding the goats, his injured arm in a sling, or whittling replacements for her broken tools while seated in the shade. Though she maintained a careful distance, conversation became inevitable during shared meals. You know a lot about doctoring for someone so young, Adam observed one evening as Delilah changed his bandage. The wound was healing cleanly, the angry red fading to pink. My mother taught me. She was a nurse back east before marrying my father. Delilah worked quickly, trying to ignore the warmth of his skin beneath her fingers. And they brought you out here as a child? Father had dreams of building something grand. She tied off the fresh bandage. The frontier had other ideas. Adam caught her wrist gently as she finished. I'm sorry for your loss. The simple sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. It was 3 years ago, she said, withdrawing her hand. I've managed. That you have. Not many could run a homestead alone, let alone keep it as well as you do. Despite herself, Delilah felt a flush of pride at his words. Necessity is a thorough teacher. Adam leaned back, studying her with those perceptive blue eyes. Is that why you keep everyone at arm's length? Necessity. I keep strangers at arm's length because that's how you survive out here, she replied sharply. You of all people should understand that, given your current predicament. Instead of taking offense, he smiled ruefully. Fair point, Miss Andrews. Though I'd like to think we've moved beyond being strangers. Temporary acquaintances, then, she conceded, gathering her medical supplies. Don't mistake gratitude for friendship, Mr. Mitchell. You'll be gone in a week, and we'll both continue as we were. But as the days passed, continuing as they were became increasingly difficult. Adam had a way of slipping past her defenses with casual kindness, leaving wildflowers on the table, telling stories that made her laugh despite herself, listening with genuine interest when she spoke of her parents or her hopes for the homestead. On the 10th day, as autumn winds began to bite, They worked together to repair the roof before winter storms arrived. "Hand me those nails," Adam called down from atop the cabin. His shoulder had healed enough for light work, though Delilah still insisted he avoid heavy lifting. As she climbed the ladder to deliver the nails, a sudden gust caught her off guard. She wavered, losing her grip, and would have fallen if Adam hadn't lunged forward, grabbing her arm and pulling her safely onto the roof beside him. For a moment, they stayed frozen, her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist, faces inches apart. Delilah felt her carefully constructed walls tremble. "Careful," he murmured, his breath warm against her cheek. "I'd hate to have to nurse you back to health. I'm not nearly as skilled a healer." Delilah pulled away quickly, heart pounding. "We should finish before dark." They worked in silence, but something had shifted. That night, as they sat before the fire, Delilah found herself asking the question she'd been avoiding. "What's waiting for you at Double Creek, Adam?" The truth this time. He stared into the flames for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "Not just rustlers. Men hired by Harlan Wade, who owns the neighboring Crescent Valley Ranch. He wants our water rights, and he's not particular about how he gets them." Adam ran a hand through his hair. "Our foreman was killed 2 months ago, made to look like an accident. Then cattle started disappearing, fences were cut. Wade's trying to bleed us dry so he can buy the ranch for pennies. And you were shot trying to stop his men?" Adam nodded. "I recognized one of them, a gun hand Wade hired from down Texas way. I was bringing proof back to the sheriff when they ambushed me." His jaw tightened. "My brother Caleb is trying to hold things together at the ranch, but he's just 19. I need to get back before Wade makes another move." "Then why stay here?" Delilah asked. "Your shoulder's healing well. You could have left days ago." His eyes met hers, unexpectedly vulnerable. "At first, because I needed time to heal. Then," he hesitated, "because I haven't felt this kind of peace in a long while. Not since before my parents died and left the ranch to me and Caleb." The parallels in their lives, both orphaned young, both shouldering responsibilities beyond their years, struck Delilah with unexpected force. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly see Adam Mitchell, not just a handsome face or a temporary inconvenience, but a young man carrying burdens as heavy as her own. "You should return to your brother," she said softly. "He needs you." "I know." Adam reached across the space between them, his fingers barely brushing hers. "But I'm finding it harder to leave than I expected." Delilah withdrew her hand, fear fluttering in her chest. This was precisely what she'd warned herself against. Connection, vulnerability, the dangerous hope that someone might stay when everyone else had left. "We made an agreement," she reminded him, standing abruptly. 2 weeks. Nothing's changed." But as she lay awake that night, Delilah knew everything had changed. The walls she'd built were cracking, and the prospect of Adam's departure in 4 days left an ache she hadn't anticipated. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Delilah was gathering eggs when the sound of approaching horses made her freeze. Adam emerged from the barn, his hand moving instinctively to the gun he now wore again. 3 riders approached, rough-looking men whose hands rested too casually near their weapons. Delilah moved to stand beside Adam, her father's rifle within reach against the chicken coop. "Well now," the lead rider called, a tall man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. "Seems rumors of your death were greatly exaggerated, Mitchell." "Quinn," Adam acknowledged, his posture tense but controlled. "You're trespassing on private property." Quinn's gaze shifted to Delilah, his eyes cold as they assessed her from head to toe. "Pretty nurse you found yourself. No wonder you've been hiding out instead of crawling back to that worthless ranch of yours." "State your business and move on," Delilah said, keeping her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. The man chuckled, an ugly sound. "Spirited, too. Our business, ma'am, is with Mitchell here. He's carrying something that belongs to my employer." "I don't have the ledger anymore," Adam said. "It's somewhere safe, where the sheriff will find it if anything happens to me." Quinn's expression hardened. "You're bluffing. Test me and find out." Adam's hand hovered near his holster. "Now get off this land before I put you in the ground." For a tense moment, Delilah thought the men would draw. Then Quinn smiled, a gesture that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Wade's a patient man. He can wait a little longer." His gaze flicked to Delilah again. "But he doesn't like loose ends. Remember that, both of you." As the riders departed, Delilah rounded on Adam, fury masking her fear. You brought this to my door. After everything I did to save you. Delilah, I'm sorry. I never thought they'd track me here. What ledger were they talking about? Adam sighed. Evidence of Wade's dealings, bribes to officials, payments to men like Quinn for services rendered. I took it from his office the night I was shot. And where is it now? Hidden in the barn. I couldn't risk carrying it, but I couldn't leave it behind either. Delilah paced, her mind racing. You need to take it to the sheriff today, now that they know you're alive and where to find you. We're both in danger. Come with me, Adam said suddenly. It's not safe for you here anymore. At least at Double Creek. We have men who can help protect you until this is settled. Leave my home because of your fight. She shook her head vehemently. This is everything I have. And it will still be here after Wade is dealt with, Adam insisted, taking her hands. Delilah, please. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For 3 years, she had stood alone against every hardship the frontier had thrown at her. The idea of accepting help, of admitting she couldn't handle this threat alone, challenged everything she believed about survival in this harsh land. But beneath the fear and anger, another emotion surfaced, one she had denied for days. She cared for this man, more than she had allowed herself to care for anyone since her parents died. 2 days, she finally said. I'll go with you to Cedar Junction, help you get this evidence to the sheriff. Then I'm coming back here, regardless of what happens with Wade. Relief washed over Adam's face. Thank you. We'll leave at first light. They spent the day preparing, packing provisions, securing the homestead as best they could, and retrieving the hidden ledger from beneath a loose floorboard in the barn. As night fell, the weight of what lay ahead settled over them both. I never meant to bring trouble to your door, Adam said as they sat before the fire on what would be their last night in the cabin. From the moment I woke up here, all I've wanted was to repay your kindness, not endanger you. Life out here is danger, Delilah replied. Her anger from earlier faded to resignation. I knew that when I chose to stay after my parents died. Why did you? Adam asked. You could have gone east, found family, a safer life. Delilah gazed around the small cabin, built by her father's hands. This is all I have left of them. Their dream. Giving up would mean their struggles were for nothing. She looked at him curiously. Why did you stay at Double Creek after your parents died? Same reason, I suppose. His smile was tinged with sadness. It's where I belong. The only place that's ever truly felt like home. Understanding passed between them. The recognition of shared values, of choices made from love rather than logic. What will you do after Wade is stopped? She asked. Rebuild what he's tried to destroy. Make Double Creek thrive again. Adam hesitated, then added softly. Find something worth more than land or cattle. The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. Delilah looked away, unwilling to acknowledge how deeply his words affected her. We should rest, she said, rising. Tomorrow will be a long day. But sleep eluded her, her mind filled with conflicting emotions. By saving this wounded cowboy, had she endangered everything she'd fought to preserve? Or had she, perhaps, found something she hadn't known she was missing? Dawn broke gray and threatening, with heavy clouds promising rain. They set out early, Delilah's few valuables packed in saddlebags, the ledger secured inside Adam's jacket. They rode in tense silence, eyes constantly scanning the trail ahead and the ridgelines above. We'll reach Cedar Junction by midday, Adam said as they paused to rest the horses at a small creek. Sheriff Tanner is a good man. Once he sees this evidence, a rifle shot cracked through the air, splintering the tree trunk inches from Delilah's head. Adam reacted instantly, pulling her behind the shelter of a large boulder as more shots followed. Quinn, he growled, drawing his revolver. They must have been watching the homestead. How many? Delilah asked, her heart pounding but her mind surprisingly clear. 3 that we saw yesterday. Maybe more. Adam peered around the boulder, ducking back as a bullet ricocheted off stone. They're up on the ridge. We're pinned down. Delilah assessed their situation with grim clarity. The creek behind them offered little cover, and their horses had bolted at the first shots. The trail to town lay exposed across open ground. We need a diversion, she said, thinking quickly. Something to draw their fire while one of us makes a run for it. Adam shook his head. I'm not leaving you exposed to their guns. Then give me the ledger, she insisted. I'll go while you provide covering fire. I'm faster, and they want you more than they want me. Absolutely not. This isn't a debate, Adam. One of us needs to get that evidence to the sheriff, or none of this matters. She held out her hand. Trust me, I know these hills better than they do. The conflict in his eyes was palpable, protection warring with the logic of her plan. Finally, he pulled the ledger from inside his jacket. Head for the ravine to the east, he said, pressing it into her hands. It will give you cover most of the way to town. I'll draw their fire to the west. Adam, she started, suddenly afraid this might be goodbye. He cut her off with a kiss, brief but fierce, conveying everything words couldn't. Be safe, he whispered against her lips. I'll find you in Cedar Junction. Before she could respond, he was moving, firing his revolver toward the ridge as he darted from their shelter toward a stand of trees to the west. Shots followed him, just as they'd hoped. Clutching the ledger to her chest, Delilah ran east toward the ravine, her heart in her throat as gunfire continued behind her. She didn't look back, focusing only on the path ahead and the vital mission she'd undertaken. The ravine provided the cover Adam had promised, allowing her to make good time toward Cedar Junction. By the time she reached the outskirts of town, her legs ached and her lungs burned, but determination drove her forward. Sheriff Tanner was a weathered man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened intently as Delilah explained the situation, examining the ledger with increasing gravity. Wade's gone too far this time, he said finally. This is evidence of at least 3 murders, not to mention fraud and intimidation. He looked up at Delilah. And you say Mitchell is still out there, drawing their fire? Please, she urged, fear making her voice shake for the first time. He needs help. Tanner nodded once, decisive. Roberts, he called to his deputy. Round up every able man you can find. We've got trouble at the East Ravine. To Delilah, he added, stay here, Miss Andrews. We'll bring him back if he's still breathing. The hours that followed were the longest of Delilah's life. She paced the sheriff's office, starting at every sound, praying to a God she'd often doubted since her parents' deaths. As dusk fell, her fear hardened into a terrible certainty. Adam was gone, just like everyone else she'd allowed herself to care for. Then came the sound of horses and men's voices. Delilah rushed to the door, her heart suspended between hope and dread. Sheriff Tanner led the group, his expression grim. Behind him rode several men, and supported between 2 of them was a figure slumped in the saddle. Adam, Delilah cried, running forward as they helped him down. He was pale, blood seeping through a crude bandage on his thigh, but his eyes lit up at the sight of her. You made it, he breathed as she reached him. I told you I would. She fought back tears as she helped steady him. What happened? Got Quinn, he said with grim satisfaction. But one of his men left a parting gift. He nodded toward his injured leg. Nothing vital hit, just messy. Sheriff Tanner approached, his face serious but satisfied. We got all 3 of Wade's men. Quinn's dead, the other 2 are in custody and singing like birds to save their necks. He clapped Adam carefully on the shoulder. You did good, son. Wade will be behind bars before morning. Relief washed through Delilah, followed quickly by concern as Adam swayed against her. He needs a doctor, she said firmly. Already sent for Doc Wilson, Tanner assured her. Let's get him somewhere he can lie down. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Wade was arrested, along with several officials implicated in the ledger. Adam's brother Caleb arrived from Double Creek, overjoyed to find his older brother alive. And through it all, Delilah remained by Adam's side, tending his new wound with the same care she'd shown when they first met. On the 3rd evening, as Adam rested in a room above the town's small hotel, Delilah finally spoke the words she'd been holding back. I need to return to my homestead tomorrow. Adam sat up straighter, wincing slightly at the movement. Delilah, everything I have is there, she continued, avoiding his eyes. I can't abandon it. I'm not asking you to, he said quietly. That made her look up. What? I would never ask you to give up your home. It means too much to you. He reached for her hand. But I am asking if I might come call on you there, once my leg heals. Properly, with intentions that I think you already know. Delilah felt the walls around her heart, walls built from loss and fear and the harsh lessons of frontier life, begin to crumble. What about Double Creek? She asked. You said it was your home. It is, just as your homestead is yours. His eyes held hers, sincere and unwavering. But I'm starting to think home might be more about who you're with than where you are. The truth of his words resonated deep within her. For 3 years, she had survived on her own, telling herself it was enough. But these weeks with Adam had shown her the difference between surviving and living. "I would welcome your call, Mr. Mitchell," she said softly, a smile breaking through her reserve. "Once your leg heals." His answering smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "I'm told I have an excellent nurse. I expect to be riding again very soon." 2 months later, with winter settling over the Colorado Territory, Adam Mitchell knelt in the snow outside Delilah Andrews' cabin, a simple gold ring in his hand and a question in his eyes. "I know it hasn't been long," he said, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "But I've known since you pulled that bullet from my shoulder that you were someone special. Someone worth changing for, worth building a life with." Delilah, bundled against the cold in a coat he'd given her, looked from the ring to the man offering it. In his eyes, she saw not just love, but understanding. He knew what her homestead meant to her, just as she had come to understand what Double Creek meant to him. "How would it work?" she asked practically, though her heart already knew its answer. "2 properties, miles apart." Adam smiled. "Caleb is ready to take more responsibility at Double Creek. And with Wade's men gone, we can finally expand as my father always wanted." He took her hand. "Your land adjoins the southern edge of our grazing range. Together, we could build something stronger than either of us could alone." Delilah thought of her parents, of their dream to create something lasting in this wild country. They had come west for love and opportunity, believing both could flourish even in the harshest conditions. For 3 years, she had honored half their legacy by maintaining the homestead. Perhaps it was time to honor the other half, the belief that love belonged even on the frontier. "Yes," she said simply, watching joy transform Adam's face. "Yes, I will marry you, Adam Mitchell." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into an embrace that promised warmth through even the coldest winters to come. Spring brought new life to the land, and a wedding that joined not just 2 people, but 2 properties and 2 dreams. Double Creek Ranch expanded southward, incorporating Delilah's homestead as the site of a new home built by Adam's hands, larger than her cabin, but constructed around the original hearth her father had laid. As summer approached, Delilah stood in the doorway of their new home, watching Adam work with the ranch hands in the distance. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach, where new life grew, proof that the frontier, for all its harshness, could nurture the most tender beginnings. "I was wrong, Mother," she whispered to the memory that still kept her company. "My heart wasn't what needed guarding out here. It was what needed freeing." As if hearing her thoughts, Adam looked up from his work, shading his eyes against the sun. He raised a hand in greeting, and Delilah returned the gesture, a smile spreading across her face. Later, she would tell him about the child that would arrive with the winter snows. For now, she savored the knowledge that in saving a wounded cowboy, she had found not just love, but the true meaning of home on the wild frontier.